So imagine this. You are given the 10 most important rules for all of humanity, literally etched in stone by God himself. And then, in a moment of white-hot anger, you smash them into 1,000 pieces. What happens next? I mean, is it just game over? Well, let's dive into Deuteronomy chapter 10. We're going to walk through this incredible story of a second chance, verse by verse, and paint a picture for each step so it's impossible to forget.
Look, this isn't just a story about getting some new stones. This is about rebuilding after a catastrophic failure. The people had completely betrayed their promise. Moses shattered the physical law, and everything, everything is hanging in the balance. This is the scene-by-scene story of how it all gets put back together.
All right, let's kick it off with verse 1. God tells Moses, chisel out 2 stone tablets just like the first ones and come back up the mountain. Oh, and also make a simple wooden box, an ark. So for the picture here, I want you to see Moses down on his knees striking this big slab of rock with a hammer and chisel. Feel the jolt in your hands with every hit. You see those sparks fly? Each one isn't just a piece of stone breaking off, it's a step toward putting things right. And then he's also told to build a plain box out of acacia wood, a really humble container for something unbelievably holy.
Now, verse 2, God makes a really important promise here. He says, I will write on the tablets the exact same words that were on the first tablets, the ones you broke. The image to lock in your mind is this. You see 2 fresh, blank stone tablets. Then you watch as these glowing letters written by a hand you can't see just burn themselves right onto the surface. The key here, the thing you have to remember, is that they are the exact same words. The standard doesn't get lowered, but grace provides a second copy.
Moving on to verse 3. Moses doesn't hesitate for a second. So I made an ark of acacia wood, chiseled out the 2 stone tablets like the first, and went up the mountain with the 2 tablets in my hands. What you got to see here is just pure, determined action. Picture Moses. His face is set. He's got this rough wooden box tucked under one arm, and the 2 heavy blank stone tablets clutched in his other hand. Feel that weight as he starts that long, lonely climb back up the mountain. This is what obedience looks like.
Verse 4 is the divine climax. Wow. The Lord wrote on these tablets what he had written before, the 10 Commandments. The visual here is just pure power. We're at the top of the mountain, surrounded by storm clouds, lightning is flashing everywhere, and then a finger that looks like it's made of pure fire comes down and sears the 10 divine laws right into the stone. You can almost hear the sizzle. This isn't some quiet moment. It's a reenactment of the most important event in their history.
And now, verse 5. Moses comes back down, mission accomplished. Then I came down from the mountain, and I put the tablets in the ark I had made, just as the Lord commanded me. The picture here is all about reverence and security. You see Moses so carefully, so gently, placing those 2 tablets, which are still glowing with this faint holy light, into the dark inside of that simple wooden box. He closes the lid, and now the law is contained, it's protected, and it's ready to travel with them.
Verse 6 gives us a quick little travelogue. The people journeyed to a place called Mosera, and it was there that Aaron died. So the picture is this long, dusty caravan of people, always on the move. But then the scene stops. It's a somber moment as the high priest Aaron dies and is buried. Then you see his son Eleazar being clothed in his father's priestly robes. It's this really powerful image of leadership changing hands. And in verse 7, the journey just keeps going, on to Jotbatha, a land that's described as having rivers of water. Can you just imagine the relief of finally reaching a place with flowing water after all that time in the desert?
Verse 8 marks a huge shift in how things are organized. At that time, the Lord set apart the tribe of Levi. The mental image here is so powerful. Just picture all 12 tribes of Israel gathered together, this massive assembly of people. And then a call goes out, and all the men from the tribe of Levi step forward, separating themselves from the huge crowd. They're getting given a new sacred job, to carry the Ark of the Covenant, to serve God directly, and to bless the people in his name. So, what do they get for this special job? Verse 9 explains it. That is why the Levites have no share or inheritance among their brothers. The Lord is their inheritance. Imagine this scene. All the leaders from the other 11 tribes are being handed scrolls. These are land deeds, maps of their new territory. But the Levite leader is handed nothing. And instead of looking down at the ground at property, he looks up toward this brilliant light in the heavens. His inheritance isn't a piece of real estate. It's a direct connection to the God who owns everything.
Verse 10 throws us back to the mountain for a second, to remind us of what this all cost. Now I had stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights, and the Lord listened to me and agreed not to destroy you. The picture here is just one of sheer endurance and desperation. See Moses all alone on that peak for 40 days and nights. No food, no water, just pleading for his people. It's this grueling image of one man standing in the gap. And then the picture changes, as you see this divine hand of destruction slowly pull back. Mercy won.
And what's the result of that mercy? Forward motion. Verse 11, "Go, the Lord said to me, and lead the people on their way, so that they may enter and possess the land." This image is the turning point. Moses, having come down from the mountain, physically turns his back on it and faces this massive camp of Israel down below. He raises his arm and he points with total authority toward the horizon. The waiting is over. The journey starts right now.
And this brings us to the absolute heart of the chapter. After the epic failure, the second chance, the journey, the forgiveness, Moses asks the question that changes everything. It is the pivot on which this whole story turns. It was a question for them, and you know what? It's a question for us too.
So that whole story about the stone tablets, that was the setup. This next part is the core message. It answers the big "so what" question. Okay, now that you've been given this incredible grace, how are you supposed to respond? What does it actually look like to live this out day to day? Verses 12 and 13 give us the answer. Let's just break it down. Verse 12 asks what God requires, and then it lists it out: to fear the Lord, to walk in all his ways, to love him, and to serve him with everything you've got. Picture 4 symbols just lighting up in your mind. A lightning bolt for that awesome respectful fear, footprints on a path for walking in his ways, a glowing heart for love, and outstretched hands for service. And then, verse 13 tells us why: observing the Lord's commands for your own good. The final image is those commands forming a protective wall around you, not a prison cell. To really get this, verse 14 zooms all the way out. To the Lord your God belong the heavens, even the highest heavens, the earth and everything in it. The image here is cosmic. Just imagine pulling back from that desert camp, past the clouds, past the moon, until you see the entire earth as just a small blue marble. And you keep pulling back, past galaxies and supernovas, to the very edge of creation. And you realize all of it is being held in the palm of God's hand.
And then, in verse 15, the camera just dramatically zooms all the way back in. Yet the Lord set his affection on your ancestors and loved them, and he chose you, their descendants. From that mind-bending cosmic view of owning everything, the focus rushes right back down, singling out one tiny group of people on that small planet. The picture is of a king who owns the entire world, but he chooses to kneel down and look with this deep, personal affection at one specific family. It's that contrast that's so staggering. Universal power, and yet personal love.
So how do you possibly respond to that kind of love? Well, verse 16 gives this really striking command: "Circumcise your hearts, therefore, and do not be stiff-necked any longer." Okay, the mental picture for this one is pretty intense. Imagine a heart made of cold, hard stone. Then, see a spiritual chisel carefully chip away that stubborn, rebellious outer layer. You see it crack and fall away, revealing a soft, warm, living heart underneath. It's a call for internal surgery, to change from the inside out.
And why should they do this? Verse 17 explains who God is. For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality and accepts no bribes. The mental image is a supreme throne room. God is on the throne, and every other king, every other ruler is bowing before him. And on his throne are etched the words, mighty and awesome. And right there at the steps of the throne is a sign that reads, absolutely no bribery or favoritism allowed. He is perfectly, completely just.
Verse 18 shows us what this perfectly just God actually does with his power. He defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow, and loves the foreigner residing among you, giving them food and clothing. The mental image is one of direct, personal action. See the hands of God himself placing a cloak around a shivering widow, handing bread to an orphan, and welcoming a lonely traveler. His justice isn't some abstract idea. It's active, compassionate care for the people who need it most. And that leads right to the command for them in verse 19. And you are to love those who are foreigners, for you yourselves were foreigners in Egypt. The visual to lock in here is all about empathy. You see an Israelite offering a loaf of bread to this weary traveler from another country. And as he does it, a transparent image appears behind him. It's a memory of his own ancestors suffering as slaves, as foreigners in Egypt.
Their own past pain is meant to fuel their present compassion.
Verse 20 sums up their devotion. Fear the Lord your God and serve him. Hold fast to him. The core picture here is simple but so strong. Imagine a person caught in a raging flood. Their hands are clamped tight, white-knuckled, around this massive, unmovable boulder that's anchored deep in the riverbed. The water is rushing past them, but they are secure. That is what it means to hold fast to God.
Verse 21 gives them their very identity. He is the one you praise. He is your God, who performed for you those great and awesome wonders you saw with your own eyes. This is an amazing idea. The mental image, a person is looking into a pool of water to see their reflection, but instead of their own face, what they see is a montage of miracles, the Red Sea parting, bread falling from heaven. God isn't just someone they praise, his actions are their story. Their identity is wrapped up in what he has done.
And finally, verse 22 provides this stunning proof of God's faithfulness. Your ancestors who went down into Egypt were 70 in all, and now the Lord your God has made you as numerous as the stars in the sky. The visual here is this powerful contrast. On the left side of the screen you see a small, old-timey family photo of just 70 people. Then on the right, a vast, breathtaking photograph of the night sky, just filled with an uncountable number of stars. That's the journey, that's the growth, that's the promise kept.
The chapter basically ends by turning that idea back on the listener. It talks about the great and awesome wonders you saw with your own eyes. So after walking through this whole story, the failure, the grace, the heart of God's commands, we're left with the same reflection. The question for you and for me is, what awesome things have your eyes seen? What's the evidence of God's faithfulness in your own story?